And hello, cricket badges everywhere as Lucas swigs down some beer or whatever was in that receptacle. And good to have you with us. We haven't been with you for a while. That's mainly my fault because I've been doing that much cricket and tennis and what have you. I just don't have time to fit in a Cricket Badger podcast. Thank you very much indeed to manscaped.com for their continued support of this Cricket Badger pod. If you want to pay them a visit, manscaped.com. And if you quote Badger, you'll get 20% off and you'll get free shipping. I'm going to start off, gents, with something a little bit more serious. My brother-in-law died last week, and my thoughts go to my sister Sarah and to my new nephews. Not my new nephews, but my nephews all the way through their lives, Isaac and Max. And so the bit down for a few days, and then Leeds United on Friday night won 3-1, and I was all back up again. And it's kind of that I'm going to start off the podcast with something away from India against England about the seriousness or the importance of sport. Because basically, when you get somebody die in your life, it's not important at all. Sport doesn't matter. Family and people you love and friends and what have you are far more important. But then sport has a massive ability to heal and to excite and to take you away from the humdrum and tragedies and various other things. So I just wanted to get your thoughts on that. And start with you, Phil, because ultimately sport isn't important, but yet it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an odd thing. I mean, if you sort of separate it out, it's meaningless. But anyone that deals with sport, either participating or running it, will see the passion that it brings out in people. Sometimes too much passion, but it becomes for some just all encompassing. Was it Shankly said that football wasn't life and death; it was more important.
Yeah.
And it's you see it. So I see it in cricket with. Sometimes it oversteps the mark, but often it's the people that drive you along. I mean, for the benefit of sport lifting you up when you're low, and I'm sorry to hear about that. Obviously, it's the first we just heard about. Condolences to you and your family. But it lifts people when they've got nothing else to lift them. It occupies people that need to have their time occupies. It gives opportunities. I deal a lot with disability cricket, you should see that the involvement in their lives, the individuals that just live and die their cricket, because it gives them purpose. It gives them a sense of achievement. It gives them relief when everything else is crushing in around you. So I absolutely concur in the strongest possible terms, and that's why the integrity of sport is so important, because it is, on one hand, absolutely valueless, but in the other hand, utterly invaluable.
I mean, basically, most sports are just a load of blokes that should know better kicking or hitting a ball of wind or a ball of cork or whatever the cricket ball's made of these days around a bit of green stuff. And doing it for fun, but it actually does matter. I think in COVID times, Lucas, we kind of probably got reminded about the importance of sport, because it doesn't matter one jot, does it really, who can hit a ball the furthest or something like that. But in COVID, where we were all locked down and life was a bit hard for a while, cricket mattered. When cricket came back, it mattered, didn't it?
Well, it certainly did, and thoughts and prayers to you and your family over that tragic incident. But yeah, when we hit with bad times during COVID, the world was looking for something like to heal. Like what is out there that can make us take our minds off such a dark time, regardless if it's cricket, any kind of sport really. And when I think when England's played India, back from COVID, I think the world, it was a coming of age. That yes, we're in a dark time, but it's gonna get better. Sport is a beautiful thing, but at times it can be a horrible, nasty thing. But when you're in a dark time, like we were 4 years ago, depending where you're from, I think we looked towards these events, whether it was cricket, whether it was WWE. I know WWE. If you're a fan of that, they produce some sport. I think they're one of the first sports.
I think they hired an island, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah,
Yeah.
they had the performance center. So, and it worked out right for them because everyone wanted to watch. But the point is that during a dark time, everyone came together, and that's the most important thing: is coming together. So yes, sport at times can be very painful, but again, it can be very beautiful at times, depending on the situation. And I felt like the last 3-4 years, when we're coming out of this crisis, that sport has growth and improved dramatically, no matter what it is, whether it's cricket, football, rugby, etc., etc. And I think that's the beauty of it, is that people come together and they just took their mind off this dark time, and they fell in love with sport again, which is a fantastic thing to see, and not just for men, for girls, for young women as well. So it came together for everybody around the world, which is a fantastic thing to see.
Let's get on to the cricket then. And we've seen India triumph. It looks, and been a couple of test matches this series where it looked like England were on top and we were starting to get a little bit hopeful. And then India, very, very strong at home. 4 test defeats in the last, I don't know how many decades. It's ridiculous. India at home are very hard to beat. And Phil, England have found it, that, haven't they? Ultimately, one bad hour or something like that is enough to cost you a test against India away.
India are just fantastic in their own conditions. I mean, they're fantastic full stop. They're good in all conditions generally. I can't think of anywhere you wouldn't fancy them. But in their own conditions, they are streets ahead. You just seen the way that they've, I don't think we bowled badly, particularly bearing in mind the pressure on those 2 young spinners that were chucked in. Here's the ball. Go and bowl out the prime spin playing cricketing nation. Bowl them out twice.
I didn't realise until I saw Stephen Finn and Alistair Cook talking about it today, Phil, that Shoaib Bashir hadn't taken a second innings wicket in his first class career prior to today. Or
I saw a fantastic stat that something like his first innings accounted for 35% of his career, or something insane. Something just how inexperienced he is. He didn't look that experienced.
He's been really good as well, hasn't he? I've been really impressed by him. I think probably of the 3 young spinners that England have had in this series, Tom Hartley obviously had a ripper of a first test, taking that 7 for. But I think Shoaib Bashir, when he's come in, has looked very confident. He's looked comfortable. He's worn the cap nicely, and there's a future for him, I think, isn't there? I mean, probably for all 3 of them, to be fair.
Yeah. I don't want to. I mean, I wouldn't want to put too much pressure on them. There's still to convince me, in truth. But from what I've seen so far, I can't grumble. They've come in, chucked a new ball, spin that, crack on. Your job, out bowl Ashwin, Jadeja, Yadav, and win us some test matches. And you think, you literally couldn't make it any harder for them. And they've stepped up. They've had bad days. They've had good days. They're going to be learning so much, and hopefully we can use this. I mean, what we did with Crawley, giving him, you just said, look, you're going in, good, bad, or ugly, you're going to get a crack. And we're seeing the benefits of that now. I've not complained about Crawley for a long time, as far as I can remember. And indeed, him and Duckett have been our most consistent performers in this series so far. So if that's any guide to go by, and if we have the same faith in these 3, I mean, it's difficult to shoehorn them all into a bowling attack anywhere outside of the subcontinent. But we've blooded them. They've come through the other side. Let's say good and bad days. I think Rehan probably has struggled the most out of all 3 of them. But
leg spinners always struggle in India, so I think he's probably done quite well considering. But I think the trouble is, Phil, I had somebody message me on Twitter today saying, this is really promising. Next time we go back to India, we'll have these 3 4 years older or whatever, and they'll be flying. But we'll get back to county cricket in March and April, and they won't play, will they?
Yeah, all those spinner, dust tops that we'll have in April. they'll be throwing. But yeah, they won't see these conditions again until the next time we go back in sort of 4 or 5 years' time. That's one of the problems we'll deal with, or won't deal with, or we'll end up with some new youngsters down there again next time in 4 or 5 years' time. I'm not sure that we plan that far ahead, to be brutally honest. But that really is the benefit, whether you like it or not. That's the benefit of the Stokes and McCullum. You're in, and you're going to stay in until you find your feet. It's the absolute antithesis to what we did 20, 30 years ago, which has proven not to really succeed. And then this is the alternative. We'll see how it works out.
I remember in the 80s, we went through one Ashes series and played about 41 players or something. It was ridiculous. And this is totally the other way, isn't it? They stick with them and they trust them. Lucas, hello to you again. The fourth test, England was it the end of day 2? I was getting quite happy about the situation where England were then, but India just had this habit, don't they, of being able to win these little important sessions and just kind of haul it back from what looked like a pretty bleak position for India at one stage.
Well, when you have when Kuldeep came in, I think England were still leading by 170. And that partnership with Kuldeep and it was the keeper. I forgot his name. Jewel, yeah. I've been praising him all week with his keeping, and I forgot his name on the spot. Fantastic. That partnership just killed England.
That's why we have you on here, Lucas.
Thank you. I'm proud that my bloopers can accommodate you, James. Who laughed.
I was going to do a bloopers reel, but YouTube's not big enough.
Cricket. No, that partnership killed England. And India have a knack, whether it's Kuldeep, whether it's Jadeja, whether it's Ashwin, whether it's Patel, they have a knack of these all-rounders scoring runs in series. Patel in the Australian series, this time, Kuldeep comes out of nowhere and just that's like he's a top order player. So they have this knack of these lower order batsmen just finding runs and taking the game away from an opposition. I thought this was England's to lose. I thought England majorly dominated this Test match. As Phil pointed out, you just have one bad hour in India. It's curtains. And unfortunately, they had one bad hour when they were leading by 175, and that partnership just destroyed them. The day 4 today. That bad hour after Jadeja got out, Ben Stokes was far too defensive with his fielding. I don't know what the hell is he doing. You would think someone of his capability would learn, like we saw in the Ashes with Lyon and Cummins, where he just set defensive fields and there were singles everywhere. It was like a death by 1,000 cuts. I don't know what he was thinking with that. I felt even day 4 today when they got out Jadeja, I felt it's going to be very tough to start on this pitch. Extremely tough, but he just gave away cheap singles. And as a batsman, you come into the crease and you get given a cheap, easy single. That's what you want. You want to be down the other end. And
I think in response to that, Luke, I think he was offering that specific shot through mid-wicket, and it drove me mad as well.
Yeah,
but there was a purpose to it, as far as I could tell, is that he
Yeah.
wanted them playing across that pad and missing.
Yeah.
And they were relying on
Yeah.
this scooting through. I think
Yeah.
I saw 2 go all day. It's the first day I've got up and watched all of it. Two stayed low.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It didn't work. Like, where was the plan? Where was the ball going towards that direction? Like hardly any time. So the plan didn't work. So giving away cheap, easy singles, like I said, it was death by 1,000 cuts. It just killed any chance England would have had. I think there was a period where Jadeja and Gill went into defensive mode when the balls started to turn. And when you go into defensive mode on these pitches, you're going to get in trouble. I mentioned when Jadeja got out, just played a little tee shot. If he was in attacking intent, he probably would have cleared that.
That's a full toss, wasn't it? He would have been kicking himself walking off after that.
Yeah. So, and then Jarrell came out with intent. And then because he played with intent, Gill, the other hand, thought, okay, well, maybe the pitch isn't that bad. And he played with intent. and the game was pretty much over because of the early singles Jarrell got from the captaincy of Ben Stokes. So I didn't understand that plan whatsoever. And then, even when England, when India needed 15 runs to get the field back. So I thought that was.
I don't think there was a plan B. I think that was the problem. Is that when you've bowled Anderson already, the ball's got old. It didn't even bother chucking the ball at Robinson after what was a lackluster first innings, and he's just bowled Root as a partnership breaker every so often.
Yeah. I also don't understand why Anderson didn't bowl the new ball. You've got arguably the greatest ever bowler with the new ball in the history of the sport, and you don't open him with the new ball.
I thought there was a couple of things yesterday, Lucas. Ben Folkes kind of got a single off every over. I got the impression. I mean, you mentioned the rollers. Stop taking a sip out of that great big bottle because it's making a load of noise on my audio podcast. Thank you.
It's just if anyone's wondering, it's just cola. It's just a cola, not alcohol, nothing.
Oh no, I wasn't questioning your alcoholism.
Oh, okay.
We are now.
It was the noise. When Folkes was kind of trying to bat through, I felt last night. I mean, he got a load of grief on our WhatsApp group. What's Folkes doing? He hasn't got the shots to take this Indian side down. It was hard to bat because you got Ashwin in full flow, and B, I think there was a plan or some semblance of a plan for Folkes to try and bat through until close, so they could then use the heavy roller on that surface and break it all up.
Yeah,
because obviously if what we've seen in that test was when they used the light roller, it just kind of compacted it a little bit and made it quite good to batting on, certainly against the new ball. So I think Folkes was kind of giving instructions there to kind of try and bat through with the tail, use the heavy roller overnight, then they'll probably tee off in the morning and then have a better chance to actually bowl India out the following day. But obviously, ultimately, it didn't work because Folkes was out fairly cheaply. But it's interested me actually through this series how so many people in our WhatsApp group, Ollie, if you're watching, he hates Ben Folkes. I don't know what it is about Ben Folkes, but he wants him out as soon as possible. I think he's keeping Lucas. You're a keeper. I know you're on one leg at the moment. But you're a keeper. His keeping in this series has been absolutely extraordinary. I think all the keepers have done well.
Well, when the first test started, I thought KS Bharat was fantastic. I thought Ben Folkes he didn't have a bad first test. But we've mentioned this in previous series where you don't take the gloves straight away in the series. You can be a bit rusty in your first game, like we saw Johnny Bairstow in the Ashes. Then it got better as the series went on. Same with Folkes. As the series has gone on, he's got better and better and better. The big surprise, well, not surprise, but the biggest thing that these keepers have done is kept their hands low as possible.
The thing, Lucas, as well, is that with England's two young bowlers, two young spinners. Bashir and Hartley, he's given them a real chance, hasn't he? Because if he'd been a mess behind the stumps, there was a couple of catches he took earlier on in the series off Rian Ahmed off the under edge, which were exceptional. But because he's been so tidy behind the sticks, it's given them a chance and made them look tidier. Yeah.
Well, that's it, isn't it? If you're a young bowler and you're struggling, you're getting hammered, not that these were getting hammered, there was a lot of spin in this pitch. And you have a good keeper behind you, knowing that if there is an edge or if a batsman advances, you know that the keeper's going to take it. And that does you a world of confidence. It gives you belief that you can bowl at that same spot, frustrate the hell out of the batsman. And if they do make a mistake, you know the keeper's going to be there. And I think Ben Folkes from Test 2 has been absolutely fantastic. Jarrell, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I have never seen a keeping performance like that from a guy that's only played 2 test matches. I couldn't believe what I saw, the way he kept his hands low. I know he plays a lot of Ranji Trophy, so that might help. But the way he keeps his hands low, I don't remember him missing a single ball. Not a single ball, even whether it was not out or out. The softness of his hands surprised me a lot, and you can't teach that. That actually cannot be taught.
He's man of the match in this fourth test.
Yeah.
When you're keeping well as a keeper batter, it knocks off. The confidence goes into your batting, and he came out and batted really nicely as well in both knocks. So, fair play to him, and congratulations to India. The better team won, and I think I got some stick. There was a post-match interview that Ben Stokes did where, the headline on the tweet was something about conditions. He did mention the conditions in it, but he equally said he thoroughly enjoyed the test. India had shown their skills on that surface. He loves Test cricket. He bigged up his spin bowlers, and he said he was looking forward to going to Dharamshala. And as a Test fan, he thought it was a really good Test match. But the Indians, Phil, are jumping on him saying, "Oh, cry more," talking about the conditions, excuses. I don't think that's the case really when it comes to Ben. Yeah. But I want to talk about Ollie Pope a little bit. Lucas mentioned this after the first test when he had that tremendous nearly double 100. And for once, Lucas got it absolutely bang on. He's hardly scored a run since then.
Yeah.
Phil, Ollie Pope, it looks like a walking wicket at times when he comes out to the middle. He doesn't seem to be somebody that can produce what he did in that first test to then produce what he's done subsequently. Just doesn't kind of mesh, doesn't add up, does it?
Yes, that old adage about class and being permanent and form, etc. Without that without that big knock,
he's 196, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, he's averaging 17.8. If you take that out of it, which is, you wouldn't be picking him on that, and he was struggling before he got there. So that 196 or whatever it was has bought him some time. But it's looking pretty ropey. I have to say that the review, it was Deep, wasn't it, that got him? The review was fantastic because he was a long way down, and you're looking at it with the naked eye, you're thinking, well, that could have gone anywhere, quite frankly. To have called it and been brave enough to review it, and for it to be hitting the stumps, I have to say, I thought was a really good bit of cricket from the Indians. But Pope, I wouldn't have played him to begin with. Then he hits that 200, and you can't drop him. It's nearest, damn it. You can't drop him after that point. But I have to say that if I was Dan Lawrence, I'd be sitting there thinking, what have I got to do to break into this team? Because the averages are in that the whole middle order is pretty dysfunctional. Root,
until Root got his century in the first innings, the 3 to 7, their returns, and obviously Ollie Pope's first test dig, 3 to 7 have produced next to nothing else, have they? So it's been poor from England. They've been reliant on Crawley and Duckett to get them off to a decent start, and then haven't really capitalised on those decent starts at times. I want to go on in the second part of the podcast today to talk a little bit about DRS, because there's some controversy about one of the calls in the test. And we'll talk a little bit more about England's fallibilities, Bazball. I don't like using the term Bazball anymore because it is just a media construct or whatever you would say it. But we'll talk a little bit about that as well. But here's a little bit of a break for our sponsors, Manscaped.
What is big groomed energy? When you have it, they just know, It's an air about you, the charisma that screams confidence quietly. With BGE, you never have to prove anything because you are the thing. Get the Manscaped Lawnmower 4.0 and get big groomed energy.
There you go, manscaped.com, quote Badger, get 20% off and free shipping. DRS, we've talked about this before on the podcast, and I know Ben Stokes after the third test was talking very much about taking umpire's call out of the equation. He got pilloried in some quarters, got a little bit of support in others. And then we saw the ball that got Joe Root out, whether it pitched outside leg or not. I did kind of tweet, slightly tongue-in-cheek, umpire's finger went up, so he's out, and that's cricket. But I've said for quite a while on here, and I often, if I tweet this, people come back at me and question my sanity, but I would take umpire's call out of a DRS review, and I would make it so, I don't want it to be so that we have 2-day tests. So on certain wickets, pitches you'll get every review's LBW, blah, 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 blah. But if you take out the umpire's call, you're not making them redundant. They're making plenty of other decisions as the match goes on. But purely on a DRS review, take umpire's call out of the equation. And if it's an LBW shout, if it's pitching out, you need to have a certain percentage of the ball hitting the wicket, because there is, it's not exact science, DRS. I think what people don't get, and sometimes I see in the replies, well, it was hitting the wicket. Well, you don't know that. You never actually saw it hit the wicket. It's hit the pad, it stopped, and then the computer has generated what it thinks, to the best of its knowledge, will be the path of that ball onto the stumps from there on. So you have to kind of build in a little bit of a margin of error. Obviously, going to be the same for everybody on that surface in that test match. But if, say, for sake of argument, for easy calculations, 50% or more of the ball has to be hitting the stumps for it to be LBW. If less than 50% of the ball's hitting the stumps, it's not LBW. Umpire's call's totally out of it. You just basically review it on the merits of that ball and on what the technology is telling you. Because what I really don't like at the moment is that you can have exactly the same ball. Say R. Ashwin bowls to Ben Stokes. The umpire doesn't give it. Ashwin reviews it. You get a different decision, exactly the same ball, but you get a different decision if it is reviewed by the bowler than if it's reviewed by the batter. And it's the same ball. He's either in or he's out. It's the same delivery. So it makes no sense to me that, Lucas. So I take the umpire's call out of it. I'd agree with Ben Stokes to that, but I wouldn't agree with the bit, if it's hitting, it's out. Over a certain percentage of the ball has to hit.
Right. I don't want to take the light from Phil, because I kind of know what he's going to say here, but I want umpire's call gone. But having said that, I'm not. When we say we want umpire's call gone, we just want that gone. We don't want, if it's pitching outside, if it's 3 meters down, which I have another huge problem with. I thought the Ollie Pope dismissal in the first innings was complete disgrace, because what more does a batsman need to do? How far does a batsman need to do? 3 meters. But he was a miles forward. He was almost in Pakistan when he played that job. He was that damn forward. And it happened to Steve Smith also in Bangladesh a few years ago. So how much leeway do we have to give to batsmen when they go forward? So I thought Ollie Pope was a bit unlucky with that one, because I think the rule is 3 meters. Well, no one, unless you're batting outside the crease 2 meters, which no one does unless it's a green top and it swings a mile. I don't think any batsman are going to get there. So I'd rather see that bring back to 2.5 or 2 meters. Just give some kind of doubt to the batsman. Now, with the doubts with the umpire's call, let's use this as an example, James. Let's go to the Australian Open, the tennis Australian Open major, one of the biggest tournaments of the year. They don't use line judges. They use Hawkeye technology to call out whether it's in or out, and it is dead set accurate. There is no doubt whatsoever.
There's a difference, though.
Yeah, I get that.
Because in that situation, the ball has actually bounced. It's hit the ground, and the Hawkeye has tracked it. In cricket,
of course,
with LBWs, it's hit the pad, and then it makes a prediction. There is a difference between tennis and cricket. Yeah,
of course, and also I think they use sensor motions underneath the court to see if it's gone out. But the point is, they experimented with that for a couple of years. Now you can make an argument saying they just wanted to use it because COVID, and they wanted to give line judges, but they didn't use that technology until doubt was gone. When it was 100% accurate, they used the technology.
I'll go back again. I don't think we can compare the tennis, because it's using the same equipment, but the tennis is actually judging a thing that's actually happened. Cricket is judging something that the computer thinks might happen.
Yeah, but this is my point. If there is too much doubt with umpire's call, get rid of umpire's call. Get rid of the DRS, or not the umpire's call, but the DRS. Do not use the DRS just for the LBWs until you can 100% say there is no doubt. If the ICC came out tomorrow and they said, you know what, we're working on technology to get rid of the umpire's call to make it 100% accurate, but we're going to lose the DRS for LBW, I'd be happy with that. I'd be more than happy with that, because also different umpires have different, they think differently. Different umpires think differently. Now, I saw a majority of these umpires calls given with Kumar Dharmasama, and a lot of those not outs with Rod Tucker. Rod Tucker's a very experienced umpire, umpired in Sheffield Shield game finals, Marsh Cup finals. I'm not going to question him, but different umpires think differently. One umpire might think, you know what, if I think it's hitting, I'm going to give it out. One umpire might think if there's doubt, I'm going to give it not out. It's a huge difference. Now, that's not umpire's fault, but I'm just saying that there are different interpretations umpires will use. And I think that's why we see so much inconsistency with umpires' call, because some give it out and some won't.
I think the other thing I have issue with at times is when you see there's obviously a certain number of factors when they're judging an LBW. Is it pitching in line? Is it then hitting in line?
Yeah.
Does it go on to hit? Basically, the three main ones. And I think if you get they red light when it's not, and they green light when it is, or whatever. I think if you get two red lights or two umpires call lights, amber lights for umpires call, I think there's enough doubt there to say there's too much doubt to give this. If you get, at the moment, getting one umpire's call in the current situation, I'd say, yeah, fair enough. But two umpires calls, surely we're throwing into doubt two of the major factors of whether it's LBW. That to me is too much doubt to actually then go on and say that batter should actually walk. Phil, where Lucas already premeditated where you're going to go on this one. Are you in favour of umpires calls staying or going?
Oh, it should stay. It's not even a debate.
Fine, it is.
I think the flaw with the argument that's so eloquently put by Lucas is that it sounds like you're dealing with positives. Oh, well, DRS isn't 100% bin it. Well, I've not seen an umpire that's 100%. I've not seen an umpire close to 100%. So what are you replacing it with? You're getting rid of a better system for a weaker system, quite frankly. Now, the idea of your umpires are there because they apply their judgment. They're there. They're seeing a ball. They're making their eyeball decision on how a ball is from the closest possible position. The DRS is brought into a system. It's not brought in to replace them. It's there to assist them in their judgment. And it doesn't pretend to be 100% accurate. I think some of the problems that we've experienced in this series is graphics that are representing numerical systems that are then undermining the numerical decision because they don't quite match up. Now,
because behind those graphics we see on the screen, there's a computer with loads of numbers all whirring around that are making an exact, to the millionth decimal point decisions, which that ball on the screen with a shadow next to it doesn't represent. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the first premise is you have to accept that some decisions are going to be made incorrectly, both ways, given out and not given out, by humans or by DRS.
How do you feel about my suggestion of keeping the DRS to help, but you take umpire's call out of a review, but a certain agreed proportion of the ball has to be hitting the stumps. So if not enough of the ball's hitting the stumps, it's not out. If enough of the ball's hitting the stumps, you give it out.
You either trust the technology or you don't. Now, I've seen people clip the stumps with the merest varnish of a cricket ball and dislodge a bail. I've seen people hit the stumps and not dislodge a bail, and that's full on. So there's so much going into it. That's why your umpire brings their decision to it, and their call should be of influence because they're in the best possible position and they've got instinct. How many times have we watched a ball go through and swing late, and it looks like it's going straight to a keeper, particularly in England, and suddenly it's swung and someone's had to dive to take it. This having a seam on a cricket ball and having a ball that goes out of shape means there's so many impossible variations that need to be taken into account. You can only deal in probabilities, and you can really only deal in a range of reasonable responses. So I think what that umpire's call does is bring the range of reasonable responses into it. When you're looking at I've not looked at the numerical data, but from what I understand to be, it's giving an area where the ball could end up. And the umpire's call really is just handing that benefit of the doubt back over to the umpire. And it seems to me that's utterly invaluable. The idea that you need to be hitting the stumps with enough of the 50% of the ball would in effect be to shrink the stumps for LBW decisions. That's the real life inference to be drawn from that. So it seems to me that just makes it far more complicated. What we've got is umpires who are skilled, they make mistakes. We have a tool to help them. That's what DRS is. It needs to be viewed that way rather than the perfect decision-making tool. And if your umpire's decision is the primary, you have to give the benefit and the primacy of that decision to the umpire. Anything else is to overcomplicate it, to effectively shrink the stumps. In your view, I think they've got the balance pretty right. The decisions are made right. How often do we realistically see decisions that are wrong? Really, genuinely, it's not very often. And I think some of those can be put down to graphics. Certainly in this series, not helping them, and the rest,
Well, even on that graphic that has been talked about a lot, if you're effectively drawing a line from the edge of the leg stump all the way down to the edge of the off stump at the other end for a right-hander, and that is the line of the extreme part of the stumps. And if you actually look at that graphic where that ball is pitching, you could argue the middle of that ball, even on the graphic, was on that line. It's only just on that line, but it was on that line.
It's all argument, and that's why you've got to draw you've got to give somewhere in that range of possible responses. You've got to put an emphasis somewhere. Otherwise, you'll be sit there unable to make a decision. What umpire's call does is give you a decision. Now, you can take that decision, put it the other way, and say the data on the computer system is far more reliable than the umpire. You can if you want. My instinct is the human eye is better. That's where I'd like. The difficulty I have is where you have a decision and an umpire may think, for example, it's missing because of height. They don't seem, I don't know if they specify where their area of doubt is, but then all doubt is applied. And even though the umpire may have thought it pitched in line and it didn't, we find afterwards it's actually umpire's call on that one. And the call is assumed to be one way or the other when the umpire may not have actually indicated a view. I think that could be refined, but that is starting to make it very complicated. And remember, all of these rules, you'll end up with a rule at the top, which is different from what we're playing on a Saturday. And so you need some consistency there as well. Otherwise, we're all playing slightly different games.
And I've seen you bowl off spin. You could do a DRS because you get loads of wickets filled with DRS.
The number of wickets I've been robbed of, James, I'm disgusted.
Honestly, if you've never seen Phil play out there, then he's the next Murali. Moving on to the final little thing I've got down on my piece of paper here. 3-1 India in the 5-match series. Bazball, when will Ben Duckett admit that the scoreboard is against him and England can't win this series, Phil? Surely they can still chase this series down, can't they?
Anything can happen. Anything can happen.
With a positive attitude, you can manifest anything. You're right.
Yeah. It'll come down to moral victories. I've seen Indian fans complaining that we claim moral victories out of defeats.
England are the moral world champions.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not? You've got to cling to something. As an England fan, Ollie and I were talking about winning tosses earlier, or I think we all were, and we won some great tosses back in the 80s and 90s. Yeah. But
nobody flips a coin like an England captain.
Absolutely. The positive, they've got to take what they can out of it. They're all young. They've all got to learn. And, half the game is won in cricket. As I tell all the kids that I play with or, have produced, cricket's a game played in the head most of the time. So if you're telling yourself that if you're giving yourself the right information for a positive mental attitude, then I say crack on. Duckett can make up whatever he wants for his whatever gets him going. Because in fairness to him, he's been one of our best performers in this series. Him and Crawley, I think, with the bat have been pretty good.
Both me and you were very anti-Crawley at one stage in terms of his, not anti him personally, but anti him being in England's team. And they stuck with him, still think far too long. He could have gone back and maybe earned a recall. But he's learned. He's changed a few things and he's loads better. And Ben Duckett in his second incarnation in an England Test shirt is tremendous. His record is really, really good. Lucas, across to you from an Aussie perspective. The one thing I really do like about Bazball is that it's really got into the heads of the Aussies. See quotes from Australians all the time. You can't stop talking about it. You're the only country in the world talking about Bazball. Everybody else has kind of moved on from it.
Well, after the end of this Test match, there was not enough tissue paper in this house to wipe tears from my eyes because I wanted us to be the first team to beat Basball, not India. I know I said 4-1, and I wanted India to absolutely demolish them, but it's just sad that we didn't have that opportunity to beat them first. So that's a bit disappointing on that behalf, James. But the Australian media just go complete bonkers. They went complete bonkers in that third test when England got absolutely rolled in the fourth innings. But look, it's the reason why, if you want to say obsessed with Basball, is that the Ashes left a stalemate. It was just like it was a 2-2 draw. No one won, no one lost. We had Pakistan, West Indies this summer. No one cared about that. Mind you, we probably cared when West Indies rolled us. But we just wanted the hell with them. We just wanted England again. We were so desperate to get them back, but obviously we can't have Ashes every single year. Even I wouldn't want that. But it's when they come to Australia next year. I think it's next year. We got India, then the Ashes. The press will be off the charts. The hype will be off the charts, especially if England's keep winning. Because arguably, I will admit this, James, arguably they have been the informed team coming into this test match. They have been arguably the informed team the last 12 months, winning away, winning at home, while we have struggled, here and there. India have struggled here and there. So England have been the dominant team the last 12 months, in my opinion. So the build-up to the Australian Summer Ashes is going to be just off the charts, and I'd love to talk about that right now, but this is England and India show. We've got two Englishmen. I don't want to anger them. 5-0 Australia.
I think we're better set up to play in Australia than England, to be honest. I think our batting lineup would much prefer true bounce and a bit less swing, a bit more aggression. Sling Mark Wood into it, and the myth that is Archer that might ever bowl a ball again, and suddenly I think that Basball setup, I feel more optimistic about it on those tracks than on Indian tracks. If I can spit that.
Absolutely.
Well, if that's the case, I'll make sure we have 5 green tops then. The hell with that.
I mean, you keep saying
Remember,
that,
Jimmy will still be there.
You keep saying this about green tops, but you realise England's got the best seam bowlers in the world. We grow up on green tops.
That's it. That's if they're still going to come to Australia. That's if Anderson will be there. Mind you, the way he'll
never retire.
Yeah, he'll probably play.
He's eyeing. Was it Ashes 2076? I think he's eyeing.
Yeah.
We'll
he wants 1,000.
We'll be long dead by the time Jimmy Anderson hangs his boots up.
Wants 1,000 wickets.
Thank you for your messages coming in. Bulldozer Williams, when we were talking about DRS, was suggesting that both umpires should wear a camera on them. I mean, they kind of do to a degree, don't they? We've got cameras everywhere, but the umpires don't actually have them, and their heads move, so that maybe isn't. That's not going to be a static camera, is it? And Sports NXT, who I would suggest is probably an Indian supporter, says, I hereby congratulate England for winning the series morally by 4 matches to none. So thank you very much for your good wishes, Sports NXT. It's your congratulations are much appreciated. Phil, we'll let you get back to work. Lucas, we'll let you get back to bed. Thank you to both of you for joining me on the Cricket Badger podcast today. See you both soon. And thank you out there, everybody, for watching. It's been fun to have you with us. So we'll be back at some stage, possibly even more so during the final test match of the series. And we will see you then. Well played, India. Series victors, 3-1 up, heading to Dharamshala. Ben Stokes says they've ordered the big jumpers. It's quite cold there, apparently.